Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to Gills in the Blood TV. It is Monday, which means it's Monday review time, and pleased to say that I'm joined by Sunderland fan Graham from the What the Falk podcast today to look back at the weekend draw at the Stadium of Light. Finished Sunderland 2, Gillingham 2 for the second season in a row. Graham, you good?
Groundhog Day. When we play
it
you
was,
anyway.
Yeah, a little bit. At least it wasn't 1-1, I suppose.
That's a start, I guess, but it's it's not the first time I've been disappointed with the result, but naturally, I think when you concede in the last minute, even if it is a draw rather than a defeat, it doesn't leave you in the best of spirits. But onwards and upwards, keep on going. It's not a defeat, so we'll plough on.
Of course, yeah, like you say, the flip side is when you nick a point in the last minute, it feels like 3 points almost. So it's all swings and roundabouts. But wanted to get you on, obviously, to get a proper opinion from a Sunderland perspective of the game rather than just me talking about it to our followers and our viewers. So we'll start right at the beginning then, the first half. 6 minutes in, Aidan McGeady. I think if you read the Sunderland Twitter feed and a couple of independent Twitter feeds, he scored goal of the season, but takes a massive deflection, doesn't it? And I think from a Gills point of view, our keeper probably saves it comfortably if it doesn't take that deflection.
I mean, Aiden obviously recently came back into the team when Johnson came in, which was November, I think. I could be slightly wrong, I'll have to check that. But he's basically been in the team for the past 10, 11 games, I think. Aiden, we used to doing the kind of cutting in inside and banging in 25-yarders since he's signed. since he's gone back, he hasn't done it that much, so I'll take it. But I remember when I first watched it, I went, "Oh, what a goal!" And then you watch the replay and you go, right, okay, that's like a wild deflection. Yeah. You can see it's been one of those ones where he's cut in, he's hit the shot, the deflection has taken off the lad's foot, just dipped over and put it like almost like a loop on it where it's just gone flying in the top corner. But what a perfect start to a game you could have. You couldn't ask for much more. A little bit of luck getting you a 6-minute sort of start. Realistically, when you're at home, you score one that early doors, you think get the second and plough on and win this comfortably, but that didn't happen.
No, it didn't. And I think it's fair to say that contrary to some other Sunderland fan channels who said that Sunderland were comfortably the better team in the first 20 minutes, I think from there on in, up until probably the penalty, I thought Gills were much the better side. They looked the more threatening. They pressed you back. I think aside really from McGeady, you didn't offer too much. I remember one really good piece of play where you worked it from left to right across the halfway line, and Max Power, I think, put in a really good ball that our right back Ryan Jackson headed out for a corner. But I thought aside from that, we marshalled Charlie Wyke really well. And I thought it was Chills doing all the pressing in terms of creating bits and pieces around the box, getting throw-ins, dare I say it, and long balls into your area and into the mixer. And I think the equalizer was fully justified when it came, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said on my Twitter feed on What the Folk, I think it was deserved, which is frustrating. I don't say it and enjoy saying it, but I felt like as soon as we scored, it was coming. It just felt that way. I think a few of the commentators mentioned they felt like it was coming, and I echoed that. I think a lot of people on my own Twitter feed, as opposed to the podcast one, a few people were saying the same, like, what's going on here? Why haven't we ploughed on? And is that Sunderland's fault for not being able to counteract it, or is that praise towards Gillingham for going straight back at us? I think, and this has not been a problem this season, it's been a problem a lot of the time since we've been in League One. We struggle with clubs that play the stereotypical League One fashion, which is basically play to your strengths. I think sometimes if you've got a big man up front and a couple of fast wingers on the side, get it in the box. Get it to them and get it in the box. I think it's basic. It's just a shame that we can't nullify that. It's frustrating to be complaining about the defence, because on paper we have, I think, the best defensive record in the league. Or they were thereabouts, a really good defensive record. We've got plenty clean sheets in there, and as much as you kind of would like to see maybe a couple of signings, especially at left back. Obviously, Jake Vogins has came in, so that's been fixed, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll talk about the lad that played there yesterday a little bit later.
Yeah, I think it needs to be touched on. I'll try and be as balanced as I can with that one, but it was just frustrating that we just seem to wilt under that kind of pressure, and I don't know what it was. It's frustrating, and I think a lot of people look at it from maybe a Sunderland perspective, and I think it was even getting my back up yesterday. We discussed it sort of off air that a lot of people as soon as we critique anything, people go, "Oh, like Sunderland fans think they should be in the Premier League." We really don't. Like, I think the majority of us, there's always one or two, of course there is, that have a different opinion. That's what makes the world go round, as you would say. But like, I think it's frustrating for a Sunderland perspective that we've been here that long and yet we still can't seem to handle a big bloke up front and a fast winger that just chucks balls in the box. We've seen a few teams do very, very similar. For what it's worth, I think Jordan Graham's probably a little bit above average, what you would see as a fast, pacey winger. But the likes of, if you want to get promoted, the long story short is you should be able to handle strikers like Verdan Oliver. And that might sound harsh, but if you want to go up automatics, you want to be where Sunderland want to be or plan to be, you need to be handling a team that's smack bang in the middle of the league, especially at home. Like, and
I totally agree with that. And I've said on Twitter when we had this chat yesterday, when it was all not getting heated, but it was maybe going that way, was that I deal with you, I deal with the Roker Report, I deal with a couple of people that write for that Roker Report, the website, and 95% of Sunderland fans are absolutely spot on. I'd class you as a mate now. I know we've never met in person, unfortunately, yet. That was because of COVID, and then last year because your train was late. I think it was when we was at the stadium alive.
It was.
95% of Sunderland fans are absolutely spot on. They realise why they're in League One. They realise why they're not in the Premier League anymore. And they've embraced being in League One. They might not enjoy it, but they've taken the time to research League One. And like you say, you're going to come up against a Gillingham type team more times than you're not at this level. So that's more Sunderland's problem again, and Lee Johnson's problem, that he's not found a way to counter it and defend properly against it. But then maybe, to play devil's advocate, would you have been better at dealing with it if Bailey Wright had perhaps been fit?
I think there's an argument to say Bailey Wright's our best defender, even if it's not necessarily his play, his sort of leadership across the back. He's a proper leader, I think, and he's someone that Lee Johnson had. So he's obviously someone that relies on Bailey. My personal opinion is that Jordan Willis is probably our best defender. I think he's someone that I'd be more than comfortable with going if we went into the Championship, which I don't think is going to happen. But if we did, Bailey Wright and Jordan Willis, I'd be happy with. The weird thing for me was maybe not so much. I mean, I think Bailey Wright was a miss. He's not been on the best of form recently, but even him on a poor form was better than Tom Flanagan. And no offense to Flano, because he seems like such a lovely bloke, but there's a reason we probably haven't got promoted with him playing 20, 30 games a season at centre back. And I think that's just because he's what I would classify as a bit of a League One plodder. I think he belongs in this division, where I think Bailey Wright, if it wasn't for his injuries at Bristol City, would probably still be playing in the Championship. And I think Jordan Willis could move up. For me and a lot of Sunderland fans, we couldn't quite understand why Dion Sanderson didn't play if Bailey Wright was injured.
Because that's what you said to me on your podcast in the preview. You said you thought it'd be Willis and Sanderson starting as the centre-back. So obviously I think I was quite surprised when it was mentioned that Tom Flanagan came straight in, because he's been out injured as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been out for about 3.5 weeks. And don't get me wrong, he's played quite a bit this season, because when Parkinson was in charge, he'd play three at the back, and Flano would be the left centre-back, Bailey Wright in the centre, Willis on the right, and playing almost like that three at the back sort of wing-backs formation, if that makes sense. They'd kind of push out into right-back, left-back. The only thing I can really think is that he preferred the balance of a left footer on the left-hand side and a right footer on the right-hand side. But I feel really sorry for Dion Sanderson, because Cardiff wanted to take him back on loan a couple of weeks ago, and they said, I think Wolves had said he's not playing, so can he go to Cardiff? And I think there was a discussion within the club, and they said, look, we'll play him a lot more. And at the minute, it looks like he's the fourth choice centre back. And if I'm honest with you, I would have no problem. I think he'll do all right in a Championship club. There's a reason he was at Cardiff and it was well liked. So I was really surprised that he didn't play. He's young, he's pacey, he's got a bit of strength. So I couldn't quite understand why he didn't play, and I understand it even less why Lee Johnson, well, I'm sure we'll come on to this, but brought him on the last 5 minutes and totally changed the whole defence around. That I can't get my head around, but I'm sure we'll come on to that. Yeah,
it was a strange one, like you say. If you're leading, I can see, because he came on at 2-1, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, but obviously there's a case to say that, are you dealing with it okay at the time, bringing someone on who's then got to try and get up to speed with the game is a risky tactic. And I suppose, like we said at the beginning, if you win 2-1, then it's good man management. But when you concede in the last minute, then he's going to get pelters from Sunderland fans. But it is what it is. But in terms of the rest of that first half, I thought, aside from the goal, we hit the bar, didn't we, as well, I think?
Yeah.
I think we also there was one move before the goal or just before we hit the bar where, I'm sure it was before we equalised. Conor Ogilvie, I think, ducked inside. Charlie Wyke, who was back defending the corner, had a shot block that looked goal bound from my view. Then come out to Callum Slattery, another one was goal bound. And it was just interesting what you said about Jordan Willis, because I made a point on my Matchday Live and said that I thought that we could get at Willis and Flanagan, because I thought Willis looked to be the one that thought we could play, but I kept thinking when we got in and around him and Oliver was challenging him, he looked really panicked. And there was a couple of times where he's tried to have a touch and take it away from Oliver out to a wider area and then clip it down the channel, and he's just run it out of play. And I said, we can get at these. They look really panicked when we're getting balls into a mixer. So is that just a case of Willis just had maybe a slightly off day, or is that something that you see as a Sunderland fan, that he's perhaps not a ball-playing centre-half?
I think it was just probably an off day. I think it was an off day for the entire defence, really. I mean, when I look at the defence that was there and I'm saying we should be able to handle it, there's actually only probably Jordan Willis that I would play in the back four on a regular basis out of the players that we've got. I mean, Max Powell's a central midfielder. He's done a right back, to be fair to him. He's overlapped well. He can put a good ball in. I probably prefer him at right back, to be honest, but I'd probably put somebody else there if I could. I'd like a new right back, if I'm honest, even though Sanderson, O'Nien and Power can play there. None of them are actual right backs, and Conor McLaughlin at the minute he's had a better season than last season, but it's not saying too much, but he's out with a hernia injury anyway, so there's not really a specialist right back there. We'll come on to it probably further, but Callum McFadzean is I don't think we're going to win promotion with him playing at left back for want of a...
You did mention him in the preview pod that he was going to be the weak link, and you're probably quite disappointed that you was proven right, because he's probably still tied in knots, bless him. But there's one point I want to make about McFadzean in the second half as well, and we'll get onto that a bit later. But just want to give a bit of credit to Lee Burge, because I know he's going to get talked about in terms of the second equaliser. Didn't realise at the time, a really good stop from the Alex McDonald drive that cannoned off the underside of the bar. When I was watching it live, I thought he just hit the bar clean, but you watch the replay, I think Burge actually gets a decent piece of it and manages to shove it onto the bar. So that's a really good save from your keeper in that sense. And then the penalty comes, and I'd imagine we'll probably have slightly different views on it. I thought it was soft. I thought McGeady was falling into our centre half, and they fell over together. I had a couple of chats with Speak Sunderland on Twitter yesterday afternoon. They're saying that it's a foul anywhere else on the pitch, but then he's saying that the foul leading to our free kick for the second equaliser isn't a foul, but it looks a similar sort of motion to me. What was your view of the penalty?
Very biased Sunderland opinion. I thought it was a definite penalty.
Fair enough. I thought you might say that, to be honest, mate. I'm not going to lie.
It was one of those ones.
To be honest, I said it's one. If it was the other way round, I'm probably screaming penalty, and you're probably,
yes.
If you was the defending side, you'd probably say it was soft. But you can't then say as a Sunderland fan, if it's a foul anywhere else on the pitch, it gets given, and then complain about the free kick that we get given that leads to our second equaliser, surely.
I think football's really, really tribal, isn't it? And I think naturally you see that sort of thing come along. My initial opinion on both the free kick that leads to your equaliser and the penalty that we got was I didn't question either of them. I can't remember being like, oof, we've got away with one there, and I can't remember going mental about your free kick that you got at all. I think...
So in that sense, the referees, at least he's been consistent, and he's given two of them, whether they're both soft or not.
And how often do you get a consistent ref in League One? So there's kudos to a League One ref for once. So I'll give him that. I think, truth be told, I think even if looking at your equaliser, even if it wasn't a free kick, I don't think anyone could argue about your score, and you probably would have scored in another way anyway. I think you deserved it. I think you said before it was the least you deserved. So for me, you sometimes get what you deserve as well.
We probably didn't first half, and then we most certainly did second half, I think. So it's like you said right at the beginning, it's frustrating as a Sunderland fan when you concede that late. You think you can see it out, but I said if you take away the Sunderland bias, the Gillingham bias, and someone watched it as a neutral and it was just the Reds versus the Blues, I think you'd probably say the Blues have had the better chances. Whether the Blues were good enough to win it is another question, but draw certainly wasn't unfair on the Blues. That would be if you was looking at it, if you was watching a Sabutio game or something like that. But
not at all.
You had all your luck first half anyway. Like I say, I think the penalty was soft. The first goal takes a deflection. We even saved the bloody penalty. And then it spins back and we claw it out again. And then Ledbetter heads it in from literally 30 centimetres. So I think you had a bit of luck first half.
Yeah, I mean, the penalty, I'll give credit to Grant Ledbetter for being aware. I think that's his experience. He's a good penalty taker, Grant Ledbetter. I don't think he's missed one from memory. I think it was a good penalty. I think it was just a good save.
Yeah, it was a good stop. It was because it was a decent height, I'd probably say, but it was in the corner, and I think it was with a decent amount of pace. But then Jack Bonham, I think, saved 4 or 5 penalties now in his 2 years with us, so it's not entirely unexpected from a Gillingham point of view.
If there's any sort of criticism, I suppose you could aim towards it, which is really harsh. It's just to say that probably if he'd pushed it around the post, then you're safe, but he pushed it straight back onto his head, basically, in a sense. But
yeah, I think it comes off the post, doesn't it? He gets a hand on it, comes off the post, and then spins back into play. But I mean, it's a penalty. He's got milliseconds to react from 12 yards, so.
He's got a big grin on his face, I think, when Ledbetter puts it in, as if to say, like, you lucky bar steward. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. But yeah, definitely.
I suppose you've got to give. It's in one way. It's like, I suppose again, it's tribal, isn't it? A Gillingham fan would say lucky, a Sunderland fan would say good awareness from Ledbetter, I suppose, essentially.
Oh yeah, and if we're picking holes from a Gillingham point of view, you could probably say, why is one of the centre backs or defenders not running with him? If Ledbetter can do it, then why have Gillingham players not done it and tried to hack it out for a corner or smack it out for a throw-in?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny how the tribalism of football sometimes works, and how sometimes even when you don't think you've got sort of rose-tinted or red and white tinted spectacles or blue-tinted spectacles on, you sometimes naturally do, because it's just the way football works, isn't it?
Because you want your team to do well, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, that's the first half out of the way. So we both agree that you were really lucky to go in him.
Yeah, I think so. I genuinely, I think at half time I actually said, I said to my girlfriend at the time, I went, we've got away with that. I was like, we'll come out second half, play well, get the third, and we know we'll take the 3 points. Thank you very much. Forget about it. I'm sure we'll go on to it, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. But yeah, I agree. I think the least you deserved in the first half was at least a 1-1. But football's football, isn't it? Unfortunately, sometimes you don't always get what you deserve.
Sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, in the second half, like you say, if you come out and probably keep us quiet for 15, 20 minutes, we then have to be open, and you probably pick us off, and you probably could go on and win 3-1. And you created a half chance, I think, for Charlie Wyke, headed it onto the top of the bar. I don't think it was ever going in. But then I think Gills reacted really well again. It was almost like a mirror image of the first half for me. You started quick, trying to pinch another goal to give yourself that 2-goal buffer again. But then you sort of resorted to type and stood off and allowed us to play our way and allowed us to get back in the game, gain territory, play the percentages and get high up the pitch and cause problems from there. And I have to say, I think we created the better chances second half as well. I think Aidan McGeady's had a couple of snapshots from the edge of the box that have not troubled Jack Bonham. I mean, if you'd let him in, you'd be disappointed as a Gills fan. I think Charlie Wyke smashed one into the stand behind the goal, didn't he, from a narrow angle? I think Jack Tucker slipped. But I thought in terms of the Gills chances, they were probably the more clear-cut. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, Charlie Wyke's been playing really well this season, and I'm loath to criticise him, but he does occasionally have one game where he's a bit ineffective.
I'm glad you've said that, because a couple of Sunderland fans have said to me on Twitter that he's generally not been very good all season. He just scores lots of goals. And I thought, well, surely that's half the point of a number 9. Surely scoring 15 goals at the turn of the year, effectively, because obviously we're slightly behind with games because of COVID, would constitute that he's doing his job.
I think it's a bit harsh on Charlie Wyke. I think I've been one of his harshest critics since he signed for us. I think I can't criticise him too much this season. In League One, you're not going to get a player that like plays Ronaldo 10 out of 10 every single week. You're going to get someone who's not doing too much. Pound for pound, Wyke at the minute on form, the way he's playing, is probably one of the best strikers in the league, which sounds weird, and a lot of Sunderland fans will be going, what's he talking about? Because he has been so poor for 2 seasons. But I think yesterday, to be honest with you, and I spoke about on our preview podcast, and you said he'd been a bit hit or miss. I think Tucker played really well. I think Tucker just handled him.
I wrote down yesterday, and I said, I think I quoted our captain actually on Twitter, Carl Dempsey, who said Jordan Graham was on flames, which he was. That's fair enough. But I quoted the tweet and I said, I think you need to give a bit of credit to our centre halves, because I thought Jack Tucker and Robbie Cundy both really stood up to everything that come into our 6-yard box and around our penalty spot, and probably played a huge part in why Charlie Wyke was taken off eventually, because I don't think he offered a great deal. The header, like we've said, that hit the bar, I don't think, it's not like he's headed it firmly and it's hit the underside of the bar and nearly gone in. It's just sort of, it's going out of play and it's hit the back of the bar on the way out.
Yeah, unexpected. Like it went closer than you first thought when you first seen him connect with the header, I think. But he was quiet. I think there was a point about 40 minutes in, just going back to the first half now, and I actually totally forgot he was playing.
Yeah, and I think, that's credit to our back four, I think.
That's probably the big shame with Sunderland, and hopefully we're bringing in Ross Stewart from Ross County is that sometimes when Charlie Wyke does have one of those games, which he's going to have, that's League One, it's natural. Like every team's a bit inconsistent. Even Hull, you look at Hull, they got beat Accrington the other week. Every team in this, we beat Lincoln 4-0. Every team has an off day. We haven't really got another option to bring on the pitch, and I would have liked to have someone on the bench yesterday, which hopefully we will next week with Ross Stewart, where if Charlie Wyke is being handled well by a defender, you can bring someone on and be like, right, get yourself stuck in, prove why you should be the number 9. But I think, was it Charlie Wyke having an off day? I don't think he looked any less sharp than he has in the past few weeks. I think he didn't get enough of the ball that he probably would have liked as he has done the past few weeks, because I think it was more balls from yourself in our box. But I do think when he did get the ball, he was handled quite well by Tucker. He had that one chance where Tucker did slip, and I wish he kind of like played in Aidan McGeady at that point because it was an open goal. But he went for the shot, and I said at the time, as a striker on form, I would have took the shot. Unfortunately, the way his day was going, it was relatively well wide.
That's it, yeah. And like you say, and I say this plenty of times as well, they're League One players for a reason. I think I might have said it to you on the podcast or someone else. If they wasn't League One players and they were 8s and 9s out of 10s every week, they'd be playing in the Championship and the Premier League, not League One. So it's what you have to put up with at this level, and it's what we all do put up with at this level, and we all understand it. You spoke about Aidan McGeady, and I think, like I've seen, looking back at the game off the top of my head, the only person I can remember getting dangerous balls into the box really on a consistent basis was Aidan McGeady. I remember the Max Power one was really good first half, but aside from that, I think until you made a change second half, I think you brought Lyndon Gooch on.
Yeah.
I think if we stop McGeady getting into dangerous areas and getting the ball onto his right foot to get it into the box, I think that's probably a lot of the reason why Wyke didn't have the game that as a Sunderland fan you'd wish him to have, because no one else was getting any type of delivery into a dangerous area for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was one particular chance, second half, just before you scored the second, actually, where I think McGeady got past, I think it was Jackson, puts a ball in, and then Aidan O'Brien just has to hit the target and it's blocked. Then you 3-1 up, then game's sewn up. But I think McGeady looked dangerous yesterday without actually doing too much aside from the goal, which had an air of luck to it, shall we say. But I was a little bit disappointed with Jack Diamond yesterday, which I feel a bit harsh because he's still a kid. I mean, he's 21, I think, so he's not like a teenager, but it's his first proper League One season. He played for Harrogate last year, which is 2 divisions further down, even if it is the fact that it got promotion with them. I felt we looked a lot more dangerous when Gooch came on, if I'm honest. But I will openly admit, I think Lyndon Gooch is by far our best player. Annoyingly, I would have liked to have seen Chris Maguire come into the squad. I don't know what's happening with Maguire at the moment. I'm guessing he's on his way because Jordan Jones has come in, but someone that will just ruffle feathers a little bit. I mean, Maguire's hit or miss, but if he's hit, he could have potentially turned that game, held the ball a little bit in the final third for us, give us a bit of an outlet, which unfortunately Charlie Wyke wasn't. Maguire could have maybe dropped a bit deeper, but he wasn't even in the squad, and we don't really know what's going to happen with him. But I think...
Yeah, I see what you're saying, because he'd have offered something different, like you say, because he'd have probably tried to find pockets of space and played the game a different way, whereas for all that was levelled at us, I think your main approach was to get the ball McGeady and then try and get balls into Charlie Wyke. And I think if we negated that, which we did pretty well for the most part, I think then we stopped you playing and causing us a real threat. And like we've already mentioned, the goals, the first one has an element of luck and the second one's a penalty. All right, he doesn't score directly from it, but he heads in a rebound. And but aside from that, I remember the one you talk about now where McGeady got to the byline and cut it back with his left foot second half. That was probably your only clear-cut chance second period.
From memory, yeah, and I'm sure someone will pick out another point, but from memory, yeah, I think Aidan O'Brien is another one I've been a big critic of. And to be fair, Aidan O'Brien has really improved Charlie Wyke's game over the past few weeks. He's gave him another, like, there's someone else to hit sometimes and someone who can play in between the lines and play that role that I was thinking Maguire could have probably played yesterday, but Aidan O'Brien was off yesterday, and after a couple of good weeks, he put in the performance that we've been probably used to since he signed. And he's been so far a massive disappointment because he's played his entire career pretty much in the Championship, and he doesn't look any better than a mid-table League One player, apart from the past few weeks. But I think probably just to give a bit of a fair crack of the whip to Charlie Wyke, I don't think Aidan O'Brien fulfilled his role at all yesterday compared to what he's been doing in the past few weeks. I think we only started looking, like I say, a bit better when Lyndon Gooch came on, and lo and behold, that was when effectively we lost 1-0 when Lyndon Gooch came on, if that makes sense, because it was you scored, we didn't. But I think there's one particular opportunity which I remember being quite frustrated with. I can't remember who the defender was. I think it was Tucker. And Gooch is going through, and he basically just outmuscled your defender, and he's clean through on goal. And the ref gave a free kick to Gillingham, which I couldn't quite understand. For me, I was like, he's just outmuscled someone. I think it's probably naive from Lyndon Gooch that he makes it look like he's maybe shoulder barged him a little bit too hard. I think watching it back on the replay, I couldn't see much wrong with it, but I definitely think we look better with Lyndon Gooch, and I think we might have even nicked it if he came on a little bit earlier. But ifs, buts, maybes.
That's it, yeah, exactly that. Right, we've already mentioned him, the left back, Callum McFadzean, I think you pronounce it, or you can correct me on that one.
McFadzean, I think, because he's half Scottish, I believe, which is, if I believe correctly from what I've been told by my Scottish family, it's McFadzean. But
I think we want to talk about, you've spoken about his performance. You said before the game that he'd be the weak link, and you was worried about him going up against Jordan Graham, and I think your worries were well founded, because Jordan Graham gave him an absolutely torrid afternoon. And but I want to ask you about one particular incident in the second half where he collides with our right back Ryan Jackson on the touchline, thinks he's getting a free kick, rolls around Italian style, I'll say, and holding his calf, writhing around like he's been shot. Looks at the referee, who then realises he's not getting the free kick. So he rolls another 3 or 4 times back on the pitch to try and stop the game so he can get treatment. I found it laughable, to be quite honest. I thought it was embarrassing from a professional footballer. And I know he's not the only one that does it, but it just stuck in my mind. And I just thought it was on the back of a really poor performance from a defender to then draw attention to yourself even more. I just found it a little bit embarrassing and a little bit cringy.
To be fair, on the flip side of that, that's the one good thing he did in the game. I wish Sunderland had a bit more of that kind of, we'll use the word shithousery, because I feel like it happens a lot to us, and sometimes we're like wet behind the ears and we don't do it. Unfortunately for Callum McFadzean, is that as much as he's maybe got that League One, League Two shithouse mentality of like how to stop a game and how to get in the way of things and stop teams from doing certain things, unfortunately he's also the same sort of level of League One and League Two as a footballer, and doesn't really add much to the in-game play. But I remember watching that, and I think by this point sometimes you do drift off onto your phone, unfortunately, with these streams, which I'm kind of embarrassed to say, but sometimes you do. And I kind of lifted my head up and I went, he's just rolled back on the pitch, and I kind of laughed about it. I think there was an incident last season against Doncaster where Luke O'Nien, who obviously coming from Wycombe, he looks like a lovely cheeky chap, but he's not daft. He won a free kick against Doncaster last season, did a couple of rolls, and Chris Maguire actually went over and continued to roll them, and it was really funny. I remember watching back at the time. I don't like to see it, don't get me wrong, of course you don't, but I think because it's happened so much to us, I kind of wish we had a little bit more nous about ourselves to do that a little bit more. But the problem you've got is McFadzean, the way he played during the game, whether if he got us anything, he didn't get us anything from that, and the way he played during the game was so poor.
I think the point I'm trying to make is, like you've said, it's good that in the sense that he's trying to show know-how, and I've said that about us since we've had this reshuffle with the loan players, where we've we've lost Josh Eccles and Scott Robertson, who are going to be good players, like we mentioned on your preview, but like you said, they're still a little bit wet behind the ears. They don't realise the other side of the game, whereas Callum Slattery's come in, and I think he knows that side of the game. But the way he does it is against Accrington on debut. They went to take free kicks, he just kicked the ball away and get back into position rather than, or stand in front of the free kick. Whereas your left back's done it. We've then still taken the throw in or the free kick, and he's then had to go off the pitch and get treatment because he's faked an injury. So he's not actually helped you out anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, he hasn't helped us out throughout the game, and I think...
Well, he might have done if you, obviously, after your opinions on his performance, you probably might have thought he was better when he was actually laying prone on the halfway line getting treatment, but...
It was the best thing he did. I'll give him that. The thing with McFadzean, I think, just to kind of maybe give a bit as much balance as I can towards him, because he gets pillared by a lot of Sunderland fans, and I can understand why, because he is not been the best of signings, but he was signed by Phil Parkinson, our normal left back Denver Hume, which is probably one of our better players. Controversial opinion, but I think he's someone who's done really well when he's played, and he's been out for weeks, and he's just redone his hamstring. I think he's out for another 8 weeks, so there's literally just him. But we started the season with a 3 at the back and the wing backs as like wingers, full backs, and as a left wing back, he actually was quite good. His debut against Mansfield, I know it's a division below, and we played poor, but he stood out. He played well against Fleetwood in the Pizza Trophy, and as a left wing back, he looked, like he could get in. I think he's got a couple of assists this season, but in a back four, he's so woefully exposed. Like for me, he might have played as a left back, but he's not a left back. He's a left wing back. If anything, I would prefer to play him on the wing. He's a basic footballer. I think he's got one position. He's good at getting forward, not the best at getting back. He can put a half decent ball in. He can overlap a little bit. I think for where Sunderland want to be, Callum McFadzean's nowhere near. I mean, he's been at Plymouth last season, League Two. He was at Bury the season before, League Two. And yeah, he got promotion with them both. And Ryan Lowe's not a bad manager at all. Actually, really highly rate him. So he's obviously been a first pick under a decent manager. But it's not a surprise to see we brought in another left back, and I don't think that's just to cover. I don't think that's to cover the injury to Denver Hume. I think that's to get in the first team. We need a left back that can be at least as decent as McFadzean is going forward, but not leave us so woefully exposed on the left hand side. And I'm kind of annoyed at Lee Johnson that I understand why he's kept McFadzean in, because we've had 2 clean sheets. It's harsh to drop him mentality and giving someone their due and giving someone their chance. But he's obviously seen something in McFadzean that he thinks needs to bring another left back in. And he's come up against Jordan Graham, who I think if you're watching League One, you cover League One, he's one of the better right wingers in that division. For me, I would have played Vokins without a doubt. I would have even played Sanderson at left back, even though he's right footed, just someone to kind of nullify the threat of Jordan Graham, because I think Steve Evans is wily, shall we say. He's not exactly young and stupid. Very annoying, and I'm sure you would agree with that. But
I used to.
Yeah, all I could hear was him just banging on and banging on and banging on in that broad Glaswegian accent. But I think he'll have looked at that team and he'll have gone, right, the left back cannot defend for anything. Our best player is Jordan Graham. Just get at him, chuck balls in the box, and I think there's been because when we've played Gillingham, a lot of the time it's been chucking balls in the box. It has been thrown, it has been crossing, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think it's the only way you play. I mean, I've seen the highlights of the Crew game just based on the fact that I had you in the podcast before to preview the game, and I think you played quite good football. Yeah, you've got the big guy up front, but I don't think your goals were all chucking the ball in the box. I think Evans has probably looked at that and gone, well, the left back's horrendous going backwards. Get Jordan Graham at him, get the ball in Oliver, cause them problems because they're a little bit weak, and it worked. I think if you had a left back,
Tuesday we played the Diamond and played Jordan Graham alongside Oliver. So I think then Steve Evans has looked at your left back and gone, right, we'll go back to 4-3-3 because Tommy O'Connor's not fit. We're playing McDonald from the left, get Graham one-on-one with the fullback, and we've all seen the results.
I tortured him. He absolutely tortured him. And with ease as well. I don't think Jordan Graham had his best game of the season. I think he played very well, but I bet you've seen him play 10 times better than he did yesterday.
But like I said to you, he doesn't even have to do too much. I think it's just because we mentioned he's got that turn of pace. It's one drop of the shoulder and he's gone. And because your left back's not intelligent enough to do that properly, defend properly against it, he just done the same thing time and time again, and your left back never learned. Yeah. Whereas if you come up against a better left back, then he's probably got to be a bit more cute, and he's going to have to come inside and do different things to get to the byline and get balls into the box. But like you say, it was just so easy, and he absolutely roasted him all afternoon.
He did, yeah, absolutely.
And then, obviously, the pièce de résistance was right at the end. We've already mentioned that you think it's probably, if he's given the penalty, he has to give the free kick. Other Sunderland fans are not so sure. Another big ball into the box from our keeper. I think John Akindi wins the first flick and causes havoc. But I want to give some credit to Verdane Oliver, because I watched the replay, I watched it live, and I just thought it was a flick, and then Jordan Graham went round Lee Burge, who for some reason come walking out a million miles off his line. Whereas if he stays on his line, he's probably got more chance of saving it, and he forces Jordan Graham to go across him, whereas he makes it so easy, I think, because Jordan could just skip round him and he's got an empty net to aim at then. But I want to give Verdane Oliver some credit, because we've all spoke about him as being the target man and playing with his back to goal and winning headers and taking on centre-backs. But I watched back the highlights last night and didn't realise his first touch is immaculate. He then sees it off round the defender before laying it off into space for Jordan Graham. And it's actually a really good assist.
I think and again, it's from a Sunderland perspective. Don't you watch everything from a Sunderland perspective? I think just Lee Burge, even if you're just not rushed out, even if as good as the ball in was, I'll have to watch it back, truth be told, because my original thought was, what the hell are you doing? I think if Burge just stays on his line, he's got half a chance of saving it.
I still agree from that perspective, but my point I'm trying to make is that for Dane Oliver, the piece of skill to bring it under control in a crowded penalty area, I don't think I realised how good it was watching it live. I totally agree, Burge, if he just stays on his line, he probably then, if he stays near post, he's got a false ground to go probably top corner or bottom corner the other side. He knows then he's got to go to his right to try and get an arm on it. Whereas he comes running out to the edge of the box, he makes it so easy for Graham. Worst case is he gets brought down and we get a penalty.
Yeah, exactly. And Burge has saved a couple this season. And Burge is frustrating because he saved
one at our place.
Oh yeah, so he did. Yeah, that's right. So he did.
Jordan Graham, ironically.
So he did. He's not as good as he's nowhere near as good as John McLaughlin. Like Lee Burge wouldn't even be fourth choice at Rangers. And I know people might say, "Oh, McLaughlin went to Rangers second choice." Alan McGregor's not a bad goalkeeper. That's not a bad thing. And McLaughlin was. I really liked John McLaughlin. I really liked him. And a lot of people went, "Oh, we'll be all right with Lee Burge." And Burge, he made a great save, for example, and he made a good save against Ipswich during the week. But then he can have a brain fart, and it makes you go,
because now everyone only remembers remembers the bit where he's run out and forgets the one that he fingertips onto the bar in the first half. Exactly.
He's a League One goalkeeper, and essentially, I think if you want to win this league, if you want to go up in the first or second places, you've got to have the majority of the best League One players or players that can cope in the Championship. And Sunderland simply don't have enough of them. You look through Hull's team, there's plenty of players that have played in the Championship and could make the step up, and that's probably why they're top of the league. They're not brilliant, far from it. Played against us and they looked relatively average, but Honeyman, Greg Dockley are very, very good League One players, basically verging on the bottom half of Championship, and I think that's what you need, and we don't have enough of that.
I think Smallwood they bought in as well was very good, was at Blackburn.
Just Smallwood, yeah, of course, a lot of experience there. I think going back to the goal with Oliver, I think he's did that all afternoon. I think as much as it might look like what people would class as long ball football, kick and rush football, playing to your strengths, as I would call it, or doing your homework on your team, because I think Evans will have done homework and he will have looked at something and gone, well, the panic. We panicked all afternoon whenever the ball came in, and I think Burge's reaction was based on what he'd done all afternoon, that sort of panic. As soon as, you said to me in the preview podcast, and D3, D4, I checked it afterwards, if there's any kind of head and stats, Oliver's top of it. So from a Sunderland perspective, it's so frustrating that we've seen how effective he can be. Technically the most effective in the air in the league this season. If you base it on stats, which Lee Johnson apparently pays a lot of attention to. And I'm loath to criticise Lee Johnson because I quite liked him and he's still very fresh and he's still got to implement his ideas and he's shown flashes of getting us better than we were under Parkinson. But like, how can you not click on to the fact that Gillingham might do that? They might launch the ball at Oliver. They might go, you know what, he's really good in the air. Sunderland struggle in the air, cause a bit of chaos. Their goalkeeper panics a little bit when that starts to happen and he'll make a mistake. He'll drop something. He'll bring you down for a penalty. There was an incident in the first half where I think you chucked a ball in the box and I can't remember who it landed to, but Lee Burge kind of ran out and went, and then kind of realised he was too far out and then went back. And it looked like he did a good thing because it looked like he kind of
did it second half as well, didn't he? I think John Akindi got in behind and Burge come herring out, and John Akindi ended up going back to the left back, and we tried to get a ball in the box. So it was something that was happening on a consistent basis, which is a little bit concerning from your point of view.
We just panicked every single time. We just panicked when the ball came in the box, and I think that second goal. The second. Let's go back to when fans could go into the ground. The pre-COVID times. The last 2-2 game at the stadium, like. Yep. Exactly the same thing happened. It was different because Mandarin obviously banged it in from about 15, 20 yards, but it was panic. It was just a get out. We seem to panic when, and Gillingham aren't unique in the sense that we panic only against Gillingham. A lot of teams, if you chuck a ball in, you've got a big lad up top. The panic in any team with any sort of nous, which let's be honest, Steve Evans has been here a long time. He'll look at that Sunderland game and go, right, okay, they've done well, they're good here. He's probably not looked and gone, how can we nullify Charlie Wyke? He's probably just said to Tucker, look, do your bloody job. When we get the ball forward, they panic at the back. Their goalkeeper flaps at stuff if the defence looks shaky. Bailey writes and just get in the box. And it's just so annoying that Lee Johnson hasn't seen that. Lee Johnson's not an inexperienced manager. I can't understand why he hasn't prepared the team for that. The only thing I can think is that he has prepared the team and the team hasn't lived up to the standard that you expected of them, because I think he was a little bit critical of our right-hand side yesterday, which I found a bit bizarre, because it was our left-hand side that was the problem.
It's a bit odd if he's come out and said that, to be fair, because
criticised the right-hand side. He said the right-hand side was poor all the way. I mean, I don't think it was great, but I think it's not what stuck out to me. But maybe yesterday's game speaks volumes for why we're bringing in 3 players, both up top and in defence, because maybe he's looked at it and just gone, you know what, you're not doing what I'm telling you to do. Maybe he's prepared them perfectly well and the team's just not good enough to withstand that. Yet here we are, Lee Burge is probably going to be the keeper for the rest of the season, and I think I'd like someone different, no offence, Lee.
No, that's fine. Right, a couple of stats and a couple of comments that I've seen, and I've said to you, I think it was off air all right at the beginning of that pod, I love Sunderland. I hope for the sake of you and your health and a lot of other Sunderland fans' health that they do go up. I said on the pod, from a selfish point of view, I'd like them to wait till next season so I can try and get to the stadium and light again.
I think we will.
Yeah, I think there is a case for that, but we don't want to depress you too much. But I just want to read you some comments that I've seen from some other Sunderland fans, those that will put in the small percentage that are not as knowledgeable and not as aware of why you're in League One and not the Premier League anymore. Worst football team I've seen was one.
Sunderland or Gillingham?
No comment. Sunderland or Gillingham's cup final. Steve Evans Rugby Club, that was one of my favourites. All we did was pump long balls and play hoofball. And we've already spoken about Sunderland were in cruise control and on top in the first 20 minutes. But so I got curious and started doing some research on this long ball notion. Long balls attempted, Gillingham 84, Sunderland how many?
Probably more because of Charlie Wyke.
94.
The amount of times that we panicked and just launched the ball. And when Flanagan plays, we do launch the ball. I said that straight away when Flanagan was playing. I was like, oh, he's going to launch the ball all day, and it's Parkinson's syndrome. I mean, statistics aside, I watched the game and I did think a lot of it was pumping the ball in the box, but I don't really have a problem with that. Like, I
don't think anyone does, and it comes back to, Graham, if we win football matches playing a certain way, no one bats an eyelid. But it just made me laugh that some of your fans, not a lot, that's wrong, sorry, I'll take that back, the minority were accusing us of being this and that. And direct crosses into the box. Gillingham attempted 18, Sunderland attempted
23.
19, more than us again. Dribble success percentage. Granted, you have to take the Jordan Graham factor to win this, and he's a little bit of a cheat code. So trying to get in the right areas. Sunderland 44% success rate. Gillingham 71%.
Yeah.
So it just made me chuckle. I'm not going to make a big deal of it. It's just a bit of a laugh with you at the end of the recording, because I thought we've been levelled at, being this and that and a rugby team, yet Sunderland tried to do it more than us, and Sunderland's percentage of successful long balls was actually lower than us. So not only were you doing the same thing as us, you did it worse than us.
I can understand why people saw Gillingham as like that, and I kind of did. I think the difference with me is I get the frustration of Sunderland fans, I really do. And everyone has their own opinion. And like you say, it definitely is what makes the world go round. And imagine how boring it would be if we all agreed. We probably couldn't do podcast, you know what I mean? Jesus.
Exactly, yeah, because if we all just went, oh, Gills are crap, Sunderland are the best, and we all went, yep, that'd be it. It'd be done. It'd be end of podcast, end of recording.
It would just suck. But I think, like, when it comes to... I think Sunderland fans are really trying to grasp it, find out what we're doing wrong in this division. And there's a lot of misconceptions about Sunderland fans. A few I seen from Gillingham fans yesterday about things in the Premier League, and someone said, like, the one thing Sunderland haven't been able to buy with all their resources is class, and I thought, F off, like, do you know what I mean? For want of a better word,
like I said to you, and I put that right at the start, because I know what the Sunderland fan base is about, and it's not the minority that tweet the rubbish and the nonsense that, oh, Gillingham are rubbish and we should be beating them, this and that. Like you said, you probably should be beating us if you want to get promoted and back to the Championship, but you back it up with reasons. You don't just say it and go, oh yeah, Gillingham are awful and Gillingham are this and that, and shouldn't ever play football again. But like I say, it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. It did make me laugh watching another Sunderland fan page do a review, and
I think it's unfair on Gillingham. I think for me, I said from a neutral point of view, much like the game last season, it was a good game for the neutral. It just totally frustrating for a Sunderland fan. I think for me, if you look at who you stand up, and a lot of Sunderland fans listen and go, "Oh, they were long ball." Yeah, you were, but a lot of teams are in this division. It's more direct. It's a more direct division because you have less skillful players. But for me, your stand-up player was Jordan Green, and he is not a player that's about long ball. He's about taking players on.
And your stand-out player was Aidan McGeady for 75 minutes.
Yeah, I think
he's
so.
Not a long ball player, so.
No, not at all. I think it's tribal, isn't it? But I think the problem you've got is there's a lot of teams that do play in a similar way, and I think sometimes Sunderland fans might look at it and go, "Oh." For me, there's been a lot worse teams in Gillingham coming to the stadium. And I don't just mean in that instance. I think last season with Mandron, you got the ball to Mandron well. I think some teams will play a bit more direct. I certainly wasn't complaining when we played slightly more direct with Sam Allardyce in the Premiership because it made sense. Jermaine Defoe's up front, get the ball to Jermaine Defoe. Guess what? You might stick it in the onion bag. I think you play at your strengths. I think it's frustrating, and it's like you have that saying, and a lot of teams kind of seem to like when Sunderland fans say you should be beating teams like Gillingham. What we mean is not that Gillingham are a small club are not good. It's just like our ambitions are to want to win the league. That's what it should be. And you're 12th in the league. It's a home game. We should be wanting to win it. And I think it would be a lot easier for Sunderland fans to stomach drawing games at home like yesterday and kind of going, we're quite lucky to get away with that. Or, it's frustrating we conceded in the last minute if we didn't do it so blooming often.
Yeah, of course.
And the fact that we do it so often makes us realise that we are in League One, and there's a minority of people that are snobby about something. I don't think we've got anything to be snobby about. I don't think we can be, and I can't understand the notion of people thinking Sunderland fans are snobby. I think you talked about it on my podcast. There's levels, and it's not an offence towards Gillingham or any team in the division that maybe isn't looking to get automatic promotion, but the size of the club that we are, we should be at least in the top 6 and thinking about the automatics. And sometimes it feels like we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. We try to find reasons for it. We go, we're Gillingham a little bit more direct. Did they cheat their way to it? Like we try to think of things, and essentially we just didn't handle it, and we just haven't handled it a lot of times over 2.5 years. And hopefully that'll change. But I think to summarise the game, if you're taking it in isolation, I don't think Gillingham were anywhere near one of the worst sides I've seen at the stadium. I've seen a lot worse. I think every time I've seen Gillingham, I've been annoyingly relatively impressed. And I've said to you a few times when we've done the preview pods, I think you could be pushing for playoffs with a bit more consistency. So I don't agree with that notion. Do I think Sunderland could have been better? Yeah, whole load better. And we will play better than that. But where we'll be come end of the season, I don't know, Matt. Hopefully at the end of the season, I can go back and go, well, that was just a one-off. I get the feeling it might not be.
Right. I think we'll end it there. It's been a pleasure, as always. Thank you for coming on.
Mate. My pleasure. Always enjoy
it. It's always nice to get proper opinions from proper fans of other clubs rather than just me talking. So really appreciate it. Right, Gills fans, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. You know where we are on all of our social media platforms. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and YouTube. Please keep subscribing to the channel, telling your friends about us. We are trying to get to 1,500 subscribers as quickly as possible. Do go and check out Graham's podcast. I will put the link to his Twitter page in the tweet when this video goes out. Until next time, up the Gills.